Welcome back to the Accessible Art History YouTube channel. This week, I'm continuing with my AP Art History series. However, this video is a bit different than my usual review content. One of the required images from the ancient Greece section is the Acropolis of Athens. The structure is quite complex and there are multiple elements that are discussed. This video will only focus on the Acropolis, its art, and other associated information. So to learn more, keep on watching. The Acropolis is a large, flat-topped rocky hill that sits proudly above the city of Athens. It rises 150 meters or 490 feet above the city. The term Acropolis is a generic Greek word that means the highest point of a city, so we do see the term used in other cities in and around Greece. Fascinatingly, in ancient times, the area was known as Caesaropea after the legendary first man-snake king of Athens. There is archaeological evidence that the Acropolis has had some form of human habitation dating back to the Middle Neolithic period between 5800 and 5300 BCE. During the Late Bronze Age, there was a Mycenaean palace on top of the hill, but very little evidence outside of a single column survives. The buildings that we have come to associate with the Acropolis were built under the direction of Pericles, the famous politician and general. A contemporary historian called him, quote, the first citizen of Athens because he sought to beautify the city and make it a center of learning and culture. His building programs oversaw the construction of the Parthenon, the Propylaea, the Temple of Athena Nike, the Erechtheion, and more. Without Pericles, Athens wouldn't have been the same. The first and largest part of the Acropolis section of the AP Art History required images is the Parthenon. As I mentioned, it was built under the direction of Pericles between 447 and 438 BCE. It was built as a temple to Athena, the patron goddess of the city. Inside, there was once a large gold and ivory sculpture of her, but that has long since been lost to history. It is a long, rectangular building that stands on a raised platform. As with many other Greek temples, it is built with a post and lintel design. Although this is quite simple, it allowed architects to create plenty of space for an elaborate decorative program. It's important to note that the Parthenon more or less covered the same footprint of at least 3 earlier Archaic-era temples. The general structure of the Parthenon remained relatively intact over the next several centuries. Early Christians converted it to a church, removing and defacing some of the sculptural programs. In the 15th century, Ottoman Turks captured the city and converted that church into a mosque. Unfortunately, during a battle against the Venetians in 1687, the Turks were using the Parthenon as a stronghold. The gunpowder they stored there was hit with a Venetian bombardment. It exploded violently, destroying many parts of the building and its beautiful art. This conflict is what allowed a British man named Lord Elgin to step in and remove many of the surviving sculptures from the exterior of the Parthenon. I'll discuss it later in the video, but it has been the center of controversy for many years. Greece gained its independence in 1832. By that time, the Parthenon was just a sad, nearly destroyed set of marble blocks. Since 1975, Greece has worked on an extensive renovation program and the building of a museum to protect the art that has survived. One of the most important elements of the Parthenon is its elaborate sculpture program. Artists filled nearly every possible space with works of art that told the stories of Athena's triumphs and Greece's history. First, let's discuss the pediment program. A pediment is the triangular part of the front of the building formed by the lintel and the roof. Because of its location, it's a prime place for art because viewers cannot help but see it as they approach the building. On the Parthenon, the east pediment shows a story of Athena's birth. Instead of the traditional way, the goddess is actually sprung from Zeus's forehead, fully formed and ready for battle. Sadly, we only know this from records of the design because the sculpture has been lost to history. Some of the pediment pieces have survived though. They are a collection of goddesses lounging casually. The relaxed angles would have fit perfectly into the triangular space of the pediment. These sculptures are incredibly lifelike. Their bodies are relaxed, truly as if they are just hanging out on Mount Olympus. The folds of their dresses are elaborate and leave the viewer wondering how it is actually stone. Unfortunately, the goddesses are missing their heads or any form of iconography. Our historians speculate that they are Hestia, the goddess of hearth and home, Dione, a titanist, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love and sexuality. Next up are the metaphy sculptures. The metaphy is a square space along the frieze which rests atop the lintel. The Parthenon has 92 metaphies, and they show scenes of mythical battles. The most famous are the ones that show the epic battle between the centaurs and the Lapists. In the story, the Lapists, a group of Greeks that live near Athens, made the mistake of inviting centaurs to the wedding feast of their king. The wine was flowing at the event, and the centaurs became inebriated and decided to carry off the Lapith women to have their way with them. The Lapists entered battle, trying to save them. The hero Theseus came to their aid, and they won the battle against those nasty centaurs. This story was included in the Parthenon because Theseus was the mythical king and founding hero of Athens. In the sculpture, we can truly feel the action. The Lapith aggressively grabs a centaur by what we can assume to be his hair, even though the creature's face has disappeared. The naturalistic details with the muscles of the two figures and folds of the clops are absolutely remarkable. The viewer can feel their struggle for victory. By adding the story to the Parthenon, it is seen as a great tribute to the man who founded their city. The final sculptural program covered in the AP Art History test is located on the frieze. The frieze rests atop of the lintel and is broken up by the metapes. Mentioned earlier, the architects and artists took every opportunity to decorate this great temple to Athena. On the frieze, we see a pair of men riding into battle. The horses and riders are in motion, and we can see the muscles flexing, and there is a strong horizontal line that runs through the piece. Once again, the folds of the human's clothing give the work a realistic feel, and it also helps to give the piece a sense of direction. The rider in the front seems to be giving a hand gesture to his companion. This gesture was repeated throughout the Parthenon, though its meaning is unknown. Upon first glance, this plaque is a bit, quote, boring compared to the other ones we just covered, but it's remarkable in its own right. The name ergostines refers to the group of aristocratic women that are shown. They are walking in part of a procession for the festival that Athens threw every 4 years to celebrate the patron goddess's birthday. The women are approaching a male attendant who presents them with the peplos, or the garment that would have dressed the statue of Athena for her birthday. Besides the remarkable naturalism that we are used to seeing in these sculptural programs, this piece is interesting for another reason. You see, this is the first time in ancient Greek art, and perhaps even the entire history of art, that we see ordinary people in art amongst mythological and religious figures. It shows society as a combination of all the groups and people feeling included in the great story of Athens. The final element of the AP Art History images from the Acropolis is this piece. It is called Nike adjusting her sandal, and it was once a part of the temple of Athena Nike. Although the goddess's head has disappeared, the rest of her body is remarkably detailed. The elaborate folds of her clothes cover her body, but they also seem a bit translucent. We can see her muscles and breasts as she bends down to fix her sandals. It's a balancing act, but she maintains perfect control, speaking to her divine nature. This work is truly a testament to the magnificence of ancient Greek art. Before wrapping up this video, I believe it's important to touch on the location of the majority of the sculptures I discussed today. You see, most of them aren't in Greece. Due to the tumultuous colonization by foreign powers, Greece didn't have a stable local government. A man named Lord Elgin of Great Britain saw it as his opportunity to claim this great art for his country. In a shady deal with the Ottoman Turks, he was able to procure, quote, the rights to the pieces and take them back to his home country. They ended up in the collection of the British Museum, where they have remained ever since. The last several decades, the Greek government, with the assistance of UNESCO, has asked the United Kingdom to return the collection to them. In fact, as a part of the Acropolis restoration project, they built a beautiful state-of-the-art museum to house them and bring their beauty back to the public of Greece. This fight, along with other objects like the Rosetta Stone, have brought up the issues of repatriation. The British argue that they protected the marbles from further destruction and received the rights in legitimate business transaction. On the other hand, the Greeks have acknowledged that their works were protected, but they are now in a position to care for and house the marbles in their homeland. As of the making of this video in 2023, there seems to be a possibility of a move happening, but nothing is set in stone, pun intended, yet. The Acropolis is certainly a beast when it comes to the APR history test, but it is a complex building that represents the great classical civilization of ancient Greece. The next video in the series will be a wrap-up of this section, so make sure to keep an eye out for it.